What is up, guys? We are going to talk about the pros and cons of owning a gun and walking around with it. Let's do it. Okay, so as I said before, we are going to talk about the pros and cons of owning a gun. First, I want to start off with some pros, and the pros are generally pros for all gun owners. The first pro would be protection, being able to protect the people that you love, and things like that. That's why most people have guns to begin with, because they want to be able to protect. I mean, you get peace of mind. It's like, all right, I have this gun, I feel a lot safer doing certain things. Like, I mean, you never know, some people may see me with a camera and they're like, oh, that's a really expensive camera, we could possibly rob him for that and probably get some money off of it. But because I have a gun, I have a little bit of peace of mind that I feel a lot safer going places with my gun. Now, before we get too far into this, I do want to say that if you are going to carry a gun, make sure that you get licensed in your state. The procedures and steps you need to do in order to get licensed differs from state to state. Google it and it should be easy to find. In Atlanta, it was only about $75. You have to get your fingerprints taken and they run a extensive background check and all things like that. I'm not sure what disqualifies you from having one or not. Like, I don't have any criminal record at all, so I was able to get it, no problem. I got my license in the mail in I think about 3 weeks, so it wasn't bad. That's that. It kind of goes hand in hand. I would almost say that guns are almost kind of like crime prevention. Basically, what I mean by that is, if I'm walking around, let's use the camera again for example. Let's just say if I'm walking around with my camera and someone sees that I have a gun on my hip, they may think twice before, trying to rob me or do anything else because I have a gun. Nobody wants to put themselves in a situation where they have to, they may not have a gun, or even if they have one, most of the time people want to go after things that they believe are easy targets. Nobody wants to have to get in a gun battle over something silly like a camera or something like that. With that, I kind of just want to go into the reason why I got a gun in the first place. If you guys watched my previous videos, I kind of showed you guys where I used to live. I wouldn't say it's like the hood. I mean, I was comfortable in the area, but it wasn't until someone tried to break into my house that I felt that I needed a gun. Because had I been there and someone had broken into my house, there wasn't much that I could do to try to protect the people in the house, as well as my belongings and things like that. So I just felt the need to get a gun. It actually did take me a while to get the license, but I was driving in the car. I know in Georgia, your car is an extension of your home, so you are allowed to drive in the car with your gun, but can't be loaded and it has to be in the open. So just keep that in mind. That's why I suggested everyone just go ahead and get the license. In order to carry your weapon, you can conceal it, you can open carry, you can do whatever you want with it. Now, with all that being said, those are the pros, the reason why I got a gun. Now I'm gonna go into the cons of having a gun. Comfortability. This is gonna start off the cons because it's not really that much of a con, if that makes sense, because there are ways around it. So when you're traveling, it's a bit of a pain in the ass to travel with a gun. Typically what you have to do, you'd have to check in your gun, you'd have to research all of the laws in whatever state or city that you're traveling to, because everything isn't always the same in all places. Also, it's a pain in the ass because you get so used to carrying your gun. If you don't want to go through those things to travel with it, then you won't have your gun, you won't have the same peace of mind and all of those things. So it's a bit of a con to travel, well, more of an inconvenience to travel with it, even though there are ways around it. Except for when you're going out of the country, I don't think that's allowed. I haven't done much research. I know their gun laws are a lot stricter and you may not even be able to have one. Another con, which can really be looked at as a inconvenience as well, would be the fact that you can be thrown out of establishments. You're allowed by law, you can go in there with your gun. You're allowed to go in most places, but if they tell you that they want you to leave, you then have to leave the establishment. If you don't, it is then considered trespassing and you can be charged. Like I said, it's not really that big of a deal. I mean, you could, but it is a very big inconvenience. So the next thing that I want to talk about, I think this is probably the biggest one, perception. Perception is a huge one because perception is everything. I think this is a big one for all gun owners slash carriers. If you're perceived as a threat, carrying a gun could get you killed. The general perception of anyone carrying a gun by the public is that they're dangerous. That's just how it is. So a lot of the time, perception for a black person carrying a gun would be that I'm a thug. 9 out of 10 times, the perception is gonna be that I'm a thug just because I'm black and I have a gun. Even though I'm wearing glasses, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not an intimidating looking person. I know this for a fact. The perception is gonna be that I am a thug or I am a potential threat to someone, when in actuality, I'm not. The only time I'll ever pull out my gun, thank God I've never had to actually use it. The only time I've ever had to pull out my gun was because someone was being aggressive towards me and I felt that that's what I needed to do. As a black man, the perception is usually gonna be I am more dangerous than someone white carrying a gun. Now, we've all seen the videos of a white man walking around with his AR-15 rifle, walking around the streets. We've seen some sort of video like that. It's happened many times. Now, I'm not gonna be the black person to try it, to test it, to see if I'll have the same results, if I'll be lucky enough for them to not perceive me as a threat and immediately shoot me down. I'm not gonna take that risk. It's not worth it to me for videos to test that out. And that's where the dangerous part of perception comes into play. When you're dealing with police officers and other people who could potentially harm you when it comes to having a gun. So what I mean by that is, I'll give you an example. There's a casino not too far from Atlanta. It's a Harrah's in Cherokee, North Carolina. So I used to go there often, used to make the drive. This was actually the last time that I ever made this drive, particularly for this reason. Whenever you're getting pulled over by a police officer, you should always let them know that you are in fact carrying a weapon. This is why I stress that everyone go get a license to carry your weapon so that you are legal and you are in full limits of the law. The reason I say that is because you tell them so that they know. What I usually do is when I get pulled over with my gun, if I'm on a motorcycle, a lot of the times I would just say, hey, do you mind holding on to my gun while we do whatever we're doing here, and I'll just get it back from you when it's over. I don't want you to ever think that I'm reaching for a weapon and you to perceive that as dangerous and that go badly for me. That's the hardest part about carrying a gun as a black person, because you'll always be perceived as a threat, at least most of the time. That could potentially be the thing that ends you. Like, you could literally be killed just for carrying a gun, Back to the story. I was in North Carolina and I got pulled over. I actually forgot that I had my gun with me. It was in the car. And what happened was, he asked for my license and my registration. Luckily for me, I had just put my license and my registration inside of the center console. I didn't have to go in the glove box. Now, like I said, I didn't remember my gun was in there. Once I went to put my information back in the glove box, once he had given it back and got back in his car, I saw my gun when I put my paperwork back in the glove box. Do you know that could have been the last thing I ever did in my life? Literally ever. That could have been the last thing that I ever did. I was in the middle of nowhere in North Carolina on the way back to Georgia. If that cop would have perceived me as pulling out a weapon to attack him, it was over for me. And that's why I also say, just make sure you let them know that you have a gun, and if you feel a little safer, just tell them, hey, just hold on to it. I mean, it's probably in your best interest. Now, I'm sure during this video, I've probably missed a few pointers here and there about different pros and cons to having guns. Those have been my experiences while owning a gun. But if you have any other experiences you'd like to share or give constructive criticism to my video, make sure to leave that in the comment section below. It's really appreciated. Make sure to like this video and share it with some friends. It may help someone, save someone's life. Maybe they didn't know that they should tell the police officer they have a weapon or anything like that. Just things like that. I just wanted people to be aware of some things and the struggles, of being a black man with a gun. Like I said, I was walking around the park and people could see it, and I could see their looks on their faces changing immediately towards me. Like they went from, oh, it's just a guy with a camera, like being interested, to seeing the gun and being fearful. Like, it's crazy, like how the perception changes once they see a black man with a gun. Like I said, I know guns in general make people uncomfortable, but it is heightened when you are black. It makes it so much worse. Everyone that carries a gun and stuff, everyone be safe. I will continue to carry my gun because I do feel safest when I have my gun. Closing thought for this video. I just want you guys, especially if you are a person of color, I just want you to think about it before you get a gun. Like, is the gun putting you in more danger than it is aiding your safety? I mean, honestly, with all the things going on in this country right now, I can't be 1000% sure on that answer. Some days it's leaning towards yes, it's worth it. Some days I feel like it's not, based on whatever is going on. But just make sure you give that a thought before you purchase a gun. And like I said, thank you guys for watching the video, and I will see you guys next time.